Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds, and in this video, I'm going to be answering your property investment questions. I've been in property now for 12 years, buying a lot of houses, packaging and selling deals. I've done over 300 property investment deals, and in this video, I'm going to be answering your niggling questions. So what do I need you to do? Well, the first thing I need you to do is I need you to smash the like button. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Once you've done that, I want you to ask your questions. Any questions that you've got around property, around HMOs, rent to rent, anything at all, what's niggling you, comment below in the chat box and I will do my very best to answer your question next week. Let's see what we had last week. So we've had a whole bunch of questions come in, some really, really good questions too. And while I'm answering these questions, it might be that you get like an offshoot of a question, in which case just go ahead and ask away. So B3 says, as you mentioned in a previous video, the big companies and banks are investigating in residential property in the UK and planning to become large landlord companies. That is correct. What's your outlook on small investors? Will competition be harder due to the big players probably changing rules, etc., to benefit themselves? I think, listen, the market's always changing. When a new big player comes in, things might change. However, like John Lewis, for instance, they're coming in, they're building 10,000 houses. How's that going to affect you as a small investor? Well, if anything, it's going to bring property prices down slightly because the more houses that are built, it means that there's more of them, in which case it's going to, it could settle the market slightly, which could be a good thing for you. If you're just getting into it, you want house prices to go down. I remember when they brought in Section 24 and they said, however, it doesn't apply to companies, but then they changed the rules slightly and said that you can set up a virgin company and be a guarantor on that company. Like, I think the market is so vast, you just need to be fluid, and as prices go up a bit, down a bit, rents go up a bit, rents go down a bit, you just need to use the right strategies at the right time. And as an entrepreneur, the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody that's just finding ways to add value, make money. So my strategies that I'm doing now are different than what I was doing 5 years ago, different to what I was doing 10 years ago. So I wouldn't worry about the market changing because all these big players are coming in. Because in fact, if big players come in, it's probably going to open opportunities. You just need to know how to look for them. So I'm never worried about competition. I hope that helps. Next question is Enki Blogs, who says, I viewed a property in Sunderland which turned out to be in a really rough area, so bad that I almost got murdered. Serious. Wow. How do you regain the confidence to view houses again after a terrifying experience? Enki, firstly, I'm really sorry to hear that you almost got murdered in Sunderland while viewing houses. That's dreadful. I mean, listen, there's good and bad in every area. So if you go to London, okay, there's really, really expensive parts, really nice parts, then there's really rough parts. If you go to Birmingham, same story. If you go to Sunderland, I'm sure there's good parts of Sunderland, bad parts of Sunderland. I wouldn't advise trying to buy a house in an area that's so rough that you feel unsafe, because those types of areas, you can tell that it's like that. If you feel unsafe, drive there at night, and if there's, if you just feel unsafe getting out of the car, if there's sofas all outside the houses, there's boarded up windows, maybe you sense that it's, there's working girls there and it just feels a bit, then that kind of area is going to attract the total wrong kind of tenants. However, if you go to a really luxurious area, like a really high sought after area, probably chances are that it's going to be really expensive to get in those areas. And the more expensive the house is doesn't necessarily mean that the rent is also more expensive and the return on investment might be lower. So my favorite type of area to invest is if the place where you almost got murdered, if that's like a 1 out of 10 in terms of how terrible it is, and a 10 out of 10 is somewhere, really, really, really posh, like Mayfair, London. I like to look at areas that are like 3, 4, so they're just a little below average, a little, needed, maybe they're getting regenerated a little bit, but they're not terrible. But I'm really sorry to hear about your experience. I would just say maybe try and find slightly safer areas. Hope that helps. Okay, Steve says, is 50K really enough to begin a buy-to-let portfolio? Steve, it's definitely enough to begin, yes. If you've got 50K, that's easily enough to buy a house to rent out. I mean, normally you're going to be able to get a 75% mortgage. So if you found a £100,000 house, you'd need £25,000 plus stamp duty, maybe just legal fees, mortgage broker fee. You're probably talking about £35,000. So if you've got 50 grand, you can definitely start your buy-to-let portfolio. My advice would probably be to learn how to use that £50,000 to buy a house, push the value up, and then get the money back so you can recycle it. But that's 100% enough to get started. Jason Allen, hi Samuel, love your videos. Thanks for all the content you provide. What are your thoughts on investing in a HMO and letting to a social housing, guaranteeing you a rental income for a few years? Jason Allen, I think it's a great idea. If you're buying a HMO property, you can rent that out to students, you can rent that out to professionals, you can rent that out to DSS tenants, you can rent that out to on a corporate let, you can rent it out to a housing association. Ultimately, when you've got a property that you've broken it up room by room, you're going to fetch more rent. And there's massive advantages to doing it as social housing because, number one, you're often helping the homeless or helping a good cause. Number two, you're getting a guaranteed rent. And number three, there's no hassle, maintenance, voids. So that is something that I've done with many of my HMOs, and I think it's a good strategy as long as you choose the right housing association. Okay, Harky says, can you make a video on how to avoid property tax as much as possible? Yeah, I certainly can. If I had to give you the top 3 ways to avoid property tax right now, I would say number 1, if you want to avoid stamp duty, buy properties that are in really bad condition, that are uninhabitable, and you won't pay stamp duty. Or get multiple dwelling relief, or buy properties less than £40,000. Those are some ways to avoid stamp duty. Second way to avoid tax is buy a property through a company, and you'll be able to claim the mortgage payments back as tax deductible. The interest on the debt you'll pay back as tax deductible. There's a second tip. Top 3, how to avoid tax is make sure that you keep all of your expenses. So anything that you are spending, whether it be petrol, whether it be buying gifts for tenants, anything at all, buying flowers for the estate agents, everything that you spend that's going towards your business, keep the receipts and ask your accountant if you can claim that back as tax deductible. So there are a few tips off the top of my head. Okay, Nathan Newbury. After thinking about your video in which the builder messed you around, my question is for this week, what are the tips for self-managing a project when starting out? And the relationship rapport is new between us and our build team. So if you're going to be managing a build team and you're going to be managing it yourself, what I would say is my biggest top tip would be make sure that the build team that you're working with give you a schedule of works. What that means is it means, right, week 1, we're going to be doing this. Week 2, we're going to be doing this. It might be week 1, we're going to do the rip out. Rip everything out. Week 2, we're going to do the first fixes. So the electricians and the plumbers are going to come and do the first fix. Week 3, we're going to start doing the plastering. Week 4, and you just have a schedule of works. And then that way, every week, you can check to see if your builder's on track. Also, make sure that the quote that the builder gives you is broken down and itemized. So the builder's not saying, oh, to refurb this house, it's going to be 20 grand. Because that's no good. Because what does that actually include? The builder needs to say, to refurb this house, here's the itemized quote. The plastering is going to be 5 grand. The new kitchen is going to be 5 grand. The decorating is going to be 2 grand. The carpets are going to be 2 grand. Because otherwise, they can cause arguments because the builder might go, I'm finished now. And you go, hang on a minute, where are the carpets? The builder says, no, I'm not carpeting it. I didn't include that when I said refurb. Oh, why is it not painted? Oh, that's a decorator's job. I'm a builder. So you need to be really clear on the itemization of works and the schedule of works, and also find builders that you have got good reviews. They may become recommended, and make sure that you're on them. Have a WhatsApp group. Make sure that you're regularly visiting, seeing what the builder's doing. That's my advice. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 more questions. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are, smash like, and don't forget to comment your questions below as well so I can answer your questions too. Okay, Miles Sumfern, how fast can you change rent to serviced accommodation from C3 to C1 due to the 90-day rule in London? Miles, I'd probably say don't bother, because to change it from a C3 to a C1, you're going to have to get planning permission. If this is a rent to serviced accommodation, that means you don't own the property. I personally wouldn't go through the aggro of getting planning permission on a house that I did not own, unless I had an option on it. Maybe try and get the rent to rent into a lease option, and then it's a whole different story. Okay, last question. Bro, what's the best way to get property deals for buy, refurbish, refinance? Do you think Yorkshire is tough to get these deals? Listen, getting buy, refurbish, refinance deals, is it tough? Yeah, of course it's tough. You can't just walk into an estate agent and say, I want a BRR deal, please. Can you give me one? And they'll give you a perfect, put your money in, pull your money out deal. You need to find properties that have got problems. Where are you going to find these? Maybe you could find them at auction. An auction that's got a property with Japanese knotweed, a property that can't sell because it's got structural problems. You need to find problem properties with motivated sellers, and then you want to work out, can you fix that problem? If you can't fix the problem, it's no good. But you want to get good at fixing property problems. Find the worst house in the street, turn it to the best house in the street. If it's got structural problems, work out how much is it going to cost for you to fix that problem, and ultimately how much is that going to lift the property by. And every time you spend £1 on fixing a problem, it needs to add £3 to the value of the house. That's a good rule of thumb. Where do you find these deals? You can find them from estate agents. I found a really good way to find them as well is pre and post auctions. And also, tell the world that you're a property investor. Tell the world what you do. And when you speak it out and you say what you're looking for and you tell the world, suddenly things start coming your way. So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. If you want to see more videos like this, you can check out a whole playlist up here. Comment below, ask me your questions, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.